Hello, welcome to Ignorant Opera.
Phil,
I'm your host, Micah, with Sera and Phil.
Phil made deviled eggs, and they are delicious.
Thank you.
They are good. Don't let the editor... Well, she'll know, I guess. Never mind. They're good. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, editor. They're very good.
I was eating cat food. Hello and welcome to Isn't Obvious. I'm your host, Micah, with Philip and Sarah. And my topic for today's episode is, isn't it obvious all highways should be tunneled or covered in some way to set them apart from the natural environment?
I mean, if we could do that with, cost effectiveness, sure. It's just digging out highways would be...
Build over. Put like a metal
Oh, you mean like...
hemisphere on top, and then have
you
dirt
mean
on top of
it's
that.
like enclosed
Wait a
highways.
minute. What happens if some idiot, which I know it seems like there are so many that drive with us on the roads. What happens
But not
if...
us.
No,
No,
certainly
not
not us. Shifty eyes.
I would like to note to the listeners that I am not active participant in this sarcastic claim of bad driving because I am a good driver.
Micah is a good driver.
He's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
He's alright. He's fine.
Yeah.
I can't complain.
I'm a terrible driver.
He drives me everywhere.
You haven't died yet.
I haven't died yet.
That's the only metric
But
you
I
need,
also
by the
drive
way.
myself and I haven't died yet, so there is that.
I feel that's a real biased opinion.
I think it's just circumstantial, but anyway.
I don't recommend dying. But the other thing too is, what if you had a bad driver and they went in these like tunnel road things and they got into an accident? Now that whole like stretch of tunnel road is just a disaster, or at the very worst, or just a terrible backlog of cars trying to like avoid this car.
Like
right?
what happens when you have an accident on highways now?
Yeah, but now
but
you
people can pull over onto the shoulder more
Right.
easily, and the shrapnel or whatever from the crash is usually...
sweep it over.
Why would there
It's-
not be a shoulder under the dome?
Oh,
There
Why
might
would you
be-
not have an extra width of land
Cost,
usage?
probably.
yeah.
Cost.
Well, if you're
Probably.
producing all of these hemispheres just to lay on
and
top, why not have them
consider-
be 80 feet across?
Consider a car explodes, or a vehicle explodes. All of that energy isn't going to be dissipating outwards. It can only go outwards so far before it's going to ricochet off the edge and come back.
Many
and...
tunnels also have exhaust vents for the sake
Well,
of exhaust.
the pieces of shrapnel aren't going to just float up through those exhaust vents.
They-
No, but they don't.
They're gonna
they
gonna
don't on
ping
highways
off
now.
They're gonna ping off the side or roof of the dome or whatever, and they're gonna land right back into the road. So
Like how current accidents leave shrapnel on the road.
Well, I mean, the difference here, though, too, is, like, yeah, spaghetti junctions aside, like, if you want to go from Minneapolis, St. Paul to, like, St. Cloud, there's a lot of just empty, shoulder space on both sides, if not just crappy grass. So if you did get into an accident, it's like, well, just pull over to the side. It's not like it's going to be terrible. But if it's all tunneled, like, I imagine that it would be really hard because every once in a while in the cities some idiot gets into an accident in the wintertime, like right in the entrance of the tunnel, and then it's super backed up. Like, imagine that, but like tunnels everywhere. Like,
But
how would you manage this?
instead of them like sliding off into the ditch where they belong, I mean,
They do belong
they
there.
block off traffic.
I like that the assumption you guys made is that it's a solid tunnel from destination to destination, and you don't have the already on-ramp, off-ramp infrastructure that's on highways now.
We would, right?
Yeah, so there's your means of access
Basically, everything
for emergency.
now. Well,
Yeah,
basically,
just-
everything
it's
you have
tunneled.
now is just tunneled
Yeah.
with maybe a little extra space.
Yeah.
And this is what to just prevent.
Allow nature to grow over our abomination of the earth. That is
I mean-
asphalt highways that
What
are
if-
cancerous vein across this country.
Couldn't you just make like some land bridges and you don't have to have
How would you
tunnels
corral
everywhere?
wild animals into a land?
They actually use them pretty regularly in places where they exist. So.
But won't the tunnel act as a land bridge?
You don't need to have a tunnel all the way through. I think
you
that's
could,
the
you could
idea.
do a couple of land bridges,
Yeah.
and that would probably
But isn't the aesthetic of an entirely tunneled highway system more
sounds
preferable?
expensive.
That I think Boston had that where they they made their whole highway system underground. They had these huge like boring machines, and they're so large that to be able to make the connection, they had to like have one of the machines go point downwards, and then the other one just like pass over it, and like that was a graveyard for this big mega. Like they only have 5 in the world because they're like, ain't no way we're gonna bring this thing out. But the Boston, like aside from that, the people could actually live above the freeway, and the city's not split up. Like St. Paul has a terrible history where when they were designing the highways, they just went right over an ethnic group of people, and no one could say anything about it because screw them, I guess. They didn't have any voting power, and it's really kind of like sad because you split off a lot of the people from one area of the city to the other, and it creates a really crappy aesthetic appearance. If you go to Shanghai, they learned all the mistakes from U.S. city planning, and so over there, like, you can walk freely from one section of the city to the other, and the cars are a different level. And so, one of the tour guides there, they say, yeah, we learned a lot from Europe and from America about what to do and what not to do.
Because we did it so stupidly in a lot of areas.
Right. I think Eisenhower had wanted to have the roads go straight to the city. So in an event of a war, you can get people in and out.
Well, the compromise of that was I forget what the increments are, but there's a mile of straight highway every so many miles to act as a landing strip.
And I think Singapore has that too, because they're such a small city-state. And I like the idea of tunnels because, I really hate how freeways dominate the cityscape, right? Like, you really have a hard time walking from one place to the other. It would be nice if everything was just like, listen, drivers,
contained and out of sight.
And it probably would make automated driving a lot easier because, there's not a lot of room for shenanigans.
Yeah, and if we ever incorporate automated driving, they're either going to have their own infrastructure because you can't have automated driving with manual driving. That can't coexist on the same lanes.
Not very well.
No. So you're already building up that infrastructure. Why not just tunnel under?
I think that I would love freeways having tunnels because then the snow doesn't screw up your commute.
Yeah, you would never have to go through a storm again.
Yeah.
Or at least not in the major arteries. There might still be neighborhoods with
and then the on ramps and off ramps will still experience some weather.
Yeah, but at least they're only they're isolated, like they can be managed. Rather, right now the whole city, like Minnesota has the 4th largest road system in the union per our capita. Like we have ridiculous amounts of roads for the small ass population we have in this state.
We like going places.
But there's nowhere.
The worst way possible.
Yeah,
there's nowhere to go.
Ways possible.
Like the only exciting place here in Minnesota is not in Minnesota.
That's not true.
What?
It's Mall of America.
What do you think the most exciting place in Minnesota is?
It's
Chicago.
No, we have excitement in the Twin Cities area.
Yeah, there's the Mall of America.
We have all 4 major sports. 5 if you include soccer.
Hey, I don't go there. I'm gonna fight you. We got
Sorry, a game that ends in 0-0 and all sides are
have
adequate or acceptable with that? It's not sport.
I think we have the 2nd largest state fair in the nation.
Yeah, Texas beats us.
Yeah,
that's
not
because they're
Texas.
It is a good thing.
How's that a good thing?
I love the state fair.
I love the state fair.
Yeah, go F yourself, you jerk.
Heathen.
We have soccer, we have the 2nd biggest state fair, and those are pluses to you guys? Weird.
Well,
they're great. They're wonderful.
How is hockey not criticized as much as soccer? Because don't their games end up in 0-0, right?
No, they have shootouts, or in the playoffs they keep playing until someone wins.
Okay, so they don't have shootouts for soccer?
No.
Shoot-offs, not shootouts. I like sports. I don't care.
I don't think there's penalty.
We like
it can end 0-0. You can have a game that ends after time at 0-0. You have 90 minutes. That's it. If there's a winner, there's a winner. If not, you guys are tied.
Okay, first of all, I think shootouts suck.
Shootouts are great because you need a victor. Fuck ties.
No.
Don't they do in the oh my god, this is showing my lack of knowledge.
The sports ball.
In the sports ball, yeah.
Sports
in
ball
in the soccer World Cup, whatever that is. If it is the World Cup, is it the World Cup?
Sure.
I don't know. Whatever.
2 World Cups.
Soccer, whatever. Football.
One is well paid, one is not.
Yeah. Wouldn't they need a victor? Wouldn't they have shootouts if in the case?
I think they have the same thing that NHL has, where they play until someone scores.
Because I think it's different. It might be different. If it's just a regular game.
You have shootouts.
But if it's a championship game, you need a fucking winner, man.
In regular season in the NHL, you have an overtime period, and then you have a shootout. In soccer, I think in normal play you have ties. But I think you also have ties in pool play because it's a point system based on victories. Mm. But I think when it gets to the championship games, they have it where they keep playing until someone wins.
That seems great. Yeah. I think that we should always do that.
Yeah, agreed.
Right.
We should do that.
Like baseball. You know, they don't have shootouts.
No, but they have a new rule this year where a runner starts on second in the 10th and beyond.
Well, that's great. Actually, I like that. I like that a lot.
Sounds great.
I don't hate that either.
I think that's a great idea. Oh yeah. So in Minnesota, there's really nothing to do.
Was this everyone a long tangent about sports
We've
and
got
things
the
that you can
Renaissance Festival. Shut up, you.
No, the only place with a Renfest. No, Renfest kind of
There's
sucks.
like breweries everywhere. There's
breweries everywhere.
There's like art festivals and stuff. Like,
I'm with Phil. Chicago's the nicest part of Minnesota.
disagrees.
Chicago is definitely the nicest
I
part of
would
Minnesota.
rather
And I hate Chicago.
I also hate Chicago.
And I also hate
Minneapolis is
Chicago.
way better.
Sorry, our Chicago listener, but your town sucks.
It's
Okay, your
It's
city is
fine.
actually very wonderful when it comes to entertainment and food, but other than that, I often feel like I'm going to get stabbed when I go there. And I had a coworker wanted to go to like Chicago, and one of our like points of interest were there, so we were there. And then one of the like handlers or whatever is like, "Hey, we want to go to Chicago," and we're like, "Cool." And then we're there, and then there were like so many homeless people. And I was like, what are you supposed to do? It's like, didn't your mom ever teach you anything? You just ignore them. And I'm like, this is just really feels like red flags everywhere. Like
Yeah,
your
but
anxiety levels.
That's every urban area in the country.
and I will
It's
say
not as bad in
probably half of them are definitely homeless, but I'm sure there's at least a percentage that are just there to make extra cash.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, I just got done working at my law firm. Hold on while I put on this hoodie and these sweatpants and go hustle some tourists for
They do
my dinner
though.
money.
They do.
I don't know.
Hey
if it-
Reginald, how's it going? I'll take a Manhattan. Oh, let me just switch quick.
I've seen it. I
But-
was there for I think it was like a school trip, not a school trip, but a school trip.
A school trip, not a
It
school
was,
trip. A
it
school
was, but it was a choir trip or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So a fancy school trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of.
Upper class school trips are just called like.
Suburban.
It was
Yeah.
fine. No, I mean, whatever. I'm not even,
Dressage.
what? This is
Yacht
Chicago,
club.
okay? And I had a friend who was living in Chicago at the time, so I like kind of broke off from the main group, and I was like, "Bye, see you later." And we went to see a movie or whatever. But anyway, walking, there's this guy who's holding like a coffee cup or whatever, asking for change, and as we were walking, he's done, right? He's done. So he gets up, walks over, gets into a Mercedes, and leaves. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck here?
That's
Honest to God.
In his defense, that's his second Mercedes.
Maybe he
Yeah.
stole it. I don't know.
I just like to reiterate this joke that what's more expensive than a luxury German car is luxury German car repairs. So maybe that's what he has to do because it's the second Mercedes, his first one's in the shop, and it's just too expensive. No, I really feel unsafe when I go to Chicago. I really do. And I really like their food, but I don't think it's worth it. And when I go travel in St. Paul, I don't have that feeling.
I don't know. I felt pretty much the same in both places. I didn't feel
Look, should we go bar hop in
more
St.
or
Paul
less
right now?
safe.
Is there any bar? There's no bars in St. Paul.
Yes, there are.
There's the one next to the Capitol.
All right, grab the microphone, grab the computer, we're going to St. Paul.
God.
Okay, we're in St. Paul now. There are no bars. There's one McDonald's and a cow. This is our city of St. I don't think there's anything in interest in St. Paul. I think the stuff that's fun is in Minneapolis.
You just
Museum.
don't go out very often, clearly.
So Energy said the Saints.
Which are great, by the way. It's adorable.
The Saints are good.
They
Okay,
are.
that's the only thing St. Paul has.
There's like speakeasies.
Capital of our
There's-
representative democracy.
Okay,
There's
I'm
like
gonna
cave-
go on a
Did you know
tirade.
there are like
That has not been stormed yet.
there are caves. There are
Mm.
caves under St. Paul and Minneapolis. There are things you don't know about the city.
You can say Dillinger clearly had an affair with like a 15-year-old girl.
Gross. All right. Cool.
Okay, about the Capitol. I had a.
I know, January 6th was a good thing. We saw a lot of patriots do the right action.
Different.
Well, I don't
different
like
Capitol.
Antifa being in the Capitol pretending that they're patriots.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
clearly a false
Besmirching
flag
the good
attack.
name of good MAGA folk.
Yeah, I bet
yeah.
you half their stuff was made in China. The stuff that they bought. And
Okay,
Stuff on
so
it.
I just want to say, like, that was heavy sarcasm. I don't endorse the Capitol 6 attacks, but their made in China MAGA stuff is actually like the knockoffs, but the real stuff is
Is it U.S. made?
is U.S. made.
Or is it U.S. assembled? Or is it U.S.
No.
decorated?
It's made in USA, a territory that we have in the South Pacific
'Cause
that is
here's-
due to many treaties just under slave labor conditions.
Here's my problem with
It's
some of
actually
these.
a boat.
Here's my problem with some of these quote unquote made in USA things. Some things are not locally or are not locally sourced, or they're not, they might be decorated in the United States, but they like Make America Great Again might have been sewn here in the United States, but the hats may not have been.
Yeah.
Like
for the USA.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh no.
That would have to be researched. So.
No, I have to deal with this a lot, which is like I actually have to take training about what can you say is made in the U.S. and assembled, and what certain amount of processes are value added or transformation, and I find the conversation incredibly frustrating when people are like, well, you bought yourself a Honda and that's a Japanese car, and it's like, well, let me tell you something that nobody gives a shit, because the engine is imported, and most of the steel is from Mexico. It doesn't matter. It's all from all over the world.
Yeah.
And who knows how much of this is really what they say it is. But they think that Ford is American for some reason, and I think that Ford is only American because maybe
the company was based in America.
Yeah, but other than that,
is it? Okay, all right.
A lot of the assembly and all of the little things that you need, like the chairs and stuff, they come from all over, and a lot
they
of
specialize elsewhere.
So I'm like, I don't know what
because
people
of NAFTA,
as Ross Pro,
which I don't think is a big deal in my.
Scandalous.
Is it? I guess I don't really know enough, but is there
if there was equal working conditions in all of the
that's true.
specified factories, then there wouldn't be that much of an issue.
No,
but
that's true.
There isn't.
No, good point. That is a good point.
As much as I don't like what President Trump had said back in the day about how NAFTA was one of the worst deals ever written, Ross Perot back in the 90s had said that this was going to be the downfall of American manufacturing. Because of the fact that you can have such cheap labor right across the border in Mexico. But ironically, that didn't really work, because China ended up taking Mexico's lunch, even though Mexico was right, bordering with, I still don't to this day understand what just happened, because
business deals.
Right, you'd expect the attack to be pretty straightforward. We just signed a great contract with Mexico, so they should be taking all over the semi-skilled labor. That means a lot of our manufacturing jobs would go there, and then it's curveball, you've been stabbed in the back, it wasn't actually them after all, this is the top 10 anime betrayals. It's I don't understand how this happened, and I missed one episode, and now here,
that
what is going
was
on?
When the cartels took over the economy of Central America, so automotive production really fell in lieu of cocaine production. And how good of a market we have in America.
See, this is why I don't like when people say weed is American, because it's you don't know where that source is. You don't know if the quality control of that is actually made in America.
You speak for yourself. I know my growers.
Okay, so I go to my local CSA and I'm like, is this really from Minnesota, or are you really importing this from some country down south or somewhere else and just putting them in the ground and then giving... Okay, I'm not that paranoid.
CSA, Cannabis Sales Agent?
I've heard...
That's good.
I've actually heard, though, a lot of farmers markets, don't locally grow. They just sell...
Yeah, they just go to a, local grocery store and get their, uncut carrots for, whatever, $1.80 a pound, and then sell it for $4 a pound. It's a genius little racket.
Holy crap, that's a great idea. And they're going to be like, this tastes so good, and it looks so clean. It's all organic, and you can't ever trust me.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't ever prove it.
Yeah. Enjoy your carrots, asshole.
I'm glad we all agree that highways should be in tunnels.
Was that our topic?
Everyone agreed to it. That we just went on side tangents, mainly about how Chicago is a shitty city to visit.
Okay, well...
It's not shitty, it's just dangerous.
It is. It sounds expensive.
How is that not shitty?
The aesthetics would be nice, but I have to say it probably wouldn't be economical at all.
Why would it be economical? You save on
all of
many wildlife interactions. You save on a lot
but
of
the materials
winterizing.
Cost. The materials cost.
You have a bunch of steel. We can go get all Mexico's steel that was supposed to be used for cars that ended up going to China.
I have no idea how this works.
We'll just build it. We'll work it out in the end. We'll just work it out.
That's basically what government does.
The problem is labor, though, right?
Yeah.
Like
Someone has to get paid at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we can just have Americans do all this labor.
Okay,
And we have a gigantic financial infusion back into our country after a global pandemic.
I mean, no, that's never going to
I had this really frustrating conversation with someone who doesn't. So basically, someone who's not American, who has an opinion about America.
Those damn Canadians.
And they're
Sure.
like, okay, so it goes like this. I'm like, isn't it funny that things that are like nice to haves are super freaking cheap, right? Like a television or, gaming consoles, I guess, to some extent. But like things that are must-haves, like lodging and housing and like, I don't know, healthcare. It's like really fucking expensive. Like, isn't that kind of weird? Like things that require discretionary spending is as dirt cheap as they can make it because we just don't have money. But things that you need to have, like internet and stuff, are just a monopoly.
Yeah.
And then he looked at me and said, "Well, it's because you guys are really expensive in labor. That's why." And I was like, "Oh shit." So like if we have
In a way.
a tunnel, like we have to pay people to do this, and they're gonna charge like at least $100, a minute or whatever, just to make this tunnel for us.
What do you think they are, psychiatrists?
I think that
To make a living wage in this country, to a living wage, not just a.
Yeah, we're not based on that. We're based on the federal minimum wage here.
God, geez.
well, in that case,
Yeah, in that
we
case.
should be fine.
You just hire anyone to do this.
But I think that the problem is cost. Like we can barely pay for our roads that are not tunnels.
No, we can clearly pay for these roads. We just choose not to because that's what our federal government has decided not to spend resources on.
One of the things that the Minnesota was thinking about, and I think Florida had already done it, was they're going to charge electric vehicles an extra tax, like an extra wheelage tax, because they're not paying the gas tax, and the gas tax is supposed to pay for the roads. So they're like, hey, you're using these roads as an electric car, but you're not really paying your dues because the roads you use is from gas. So, cough up, give us the money. And I'm like, I don't know how that makes any fucking sense at all. Because
you're using infrastructure that us good gas drivers are paying for, and you're out there with your silly little smart car or Leaf or whatever electric vehicle you may have, just working on all of our labor that we've put into those asphalt streets.
Yeah, but it's like, if you're looking at who causes damage, you shouldn't be going to the people who have like fucking sneakers on. It's like, hey, you're using a rose man. It's like you're putting.
Hey, no, you bring up a good
0.01
point. We should just have a standard tax for anyone who could potentially use a road.
Yeah. Pretty much. Instead of making it a gas.
First, we must
tax.
tax the sun.
That'll work.
Number one in the action items. No, I feel
Well,
like
like Louis Gohmert said, maybe we can just move the Earth further away from the sun, and that will cool us down.
okay, I don't know how the sun works enough to dispute this, but isn't there a problem with the fact that we can't even pay for our shit? I think to be able to have nice shit would be great to have. One of the things I made against a libertarian argument was, like, for every month that we were in Iraq and Afghanistan was a month you could just pick a city and just give them a subway. That's how much it costs.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, I'm going to just pick you, Phoenix, Arizona. Here's your subway. And next month we're going to go to, I don't know,
So it's not
Kansas
so much,
City.
It's not so
By
much how do we pay for it. It's we need to realign our application of funds that we already have.
By subway, you mean like
A Subway sandwich shop.
a train or a sandwich shop?
I mean, based on minimum wage.
Okay.
But yeah, subway system,
Okay.
not a sandwich system.
Okay, I just
we
wanted
already
to
have
clarify
these.
that because when you said subway, I'm like, okay, are you talking like sandwich shop? or-
Every month spent in Iraq and Afghanistan was one Jerry Fogel.
Yeah,
Because if
that's about
it was
right.
that cheap,
No, I mean his whole lawsuit.
Yeah, and his, just terribleness. I think that's probably right. No, I feel like there is money. It's just that, like, I don't know how to get to it. Like, it's the Onion article where average Americans are going to pull up to get a high-powered lobbyist. And then he's like, this lobbyist is so high-powered. He represented Goldman Sachs and other industries, and he's going to represent the American people. He just needs your money.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lobbyist is like, I'm worth the value. If you guys get me as a lobbyist, the people in Congress are going to know, wow, these American people need to be represented. It's like
$300 million a year. Yes, that is $1 from every American. I will represent you
Right.
as your lone advocate in the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's better than... That's probably worth it, to be honest. Like, $1 to get representation about what Americans need?
We should just impose a tax penalty.
We
to be
don't have
representative.
representatives that are supposed to fulfill our needs as American people that we just...
No, they're there to get rich.
They are there to get rich. I mean...
All right.
They want cushy deals and, like, tenure at, I don't know, Butler?
Some think tank group that gives them, like, I don't know, $10,000 an hour. I feel like you can't really become a congressman or a woman unless you have, like, fuck you money. And then once you are there, and then you can get, like, yeah, that's a lot of money.
I disagree. I don't think you need fuck you money.
I just don't know how people can get elected without having a terrible amount of, like,
just you're really good at doing room jobs.
But you have to be really good. Like, I just don't know. If you're
Let
going
me
to
tell
be
you, many members of Congress are very good linguists. I don't mean they speak multiple languages.
Mike has been practicing.
a cunning language.
He wants to run for Congress someday.
I can almost Gene Simmons it. Almost.
Well, look, if I could run for Congress, this podcast would automatically just disqualify me. But that would
Probably all of us.
No, this is bolstering my argument.
But I mean, if you just got like one term at the federal level, you have some sweet ass benefits for the rest of your life.
That should go away.
It should go away. But I mean, like,
I understand like needing to get people in, like, because
give them a higher pay when they're in office and they don't get the bonus out of office.
See,
you don't need to be on a salaried system or on government health care if you serve 1-2 year term.
I kind of would agree with that more than this extended whatever for the rest of your life thing, because like no one else in the nation gets that. And like I understand the need to like incentivize people to run for office, because it is a job that needs to be done.
You know, that
and
damn sense
sucks.
of civic duty isn't really strong anymore.
It really isn't, actually.
No way, screw that.
It fucking really isn't. And so they still need an incentive. So yes, pay them more, but none of this continued blood sucking. That needs to go away.
That's kind of the American way, though.
I think what I would really like, rather than having more goddamn cars just in general, would be having a nice public trains.
Yeah.
And like if you go to Korea, it's fucking ridiculous how far their subway system and trains can take you. You don't really need to have a car, but you still kind of want to have a car.
Here's my question for you then, Phil. Convince someone in New Mexico to pay for New York subway.
Just tell them that it's the Freedom Train, and then they just
they'll just do it. They'll just throw it.
I don't know. Like, I don't understand how. I've come to the conclusion that I'm really bad at convincing people things, but I think Republicans are just really good at convincing people to do things against their best interest. I don't know how they do it, but like farmers who lost a lot of money on our recent, not recent, but in the trade wars that we had, where soybeans just fell through the roof. Sorry. Soybeans just became worthless because China used to buy them up for their pigs because they love pork.
And then we're like, nope, no more soybeans for you. And then the farmers got fucked.
The farmers got super fucked, and so bad that the federal government had to bail them out. But they didn't know that at that time. They just lost all of their crops. It just went to waste. And then they interview these farmers, and they're like, well, how do you feel about the administration's practice? And they're like, we love Trump. And I'm like,
all I have to say is if those Democrats down there in Washington looked at the agricultural bill that our dear Lord President Trump put forward, we won't be in this situation.
I can understand like fluff talk, but like at the end of the day, if they actually lose money, and then they still are like, well, trade wars have casualties just like real wars. And I'm like, how did you do that? Like, how did
you don't understand? I am willing to put my livelihood
cults work.
And my 18 generations of farming here in North Carolina on this president. I will ride or die for this president.
And
it's
crazy.
It's a cult. It's a cult. That's what it is. They just funnel the money in. They don't even...
It's a different topic, but half of America just had my first political candidate experience, and they're all jazzed up. As many liberals have that when they're like 16, 17. Like, yeah, John Edwards! Oh, he did a bad thing. Well, now I'm a little more disillusioned, but you know what?
And disappointed in humanity.
Voting for a Democrat is still better than voting for a Republican.
That's yes, yeah. But also
yes,
not by much, but it is better.
No, but a little.
President Biden said something like today. He did an executive order, which
cops need to shoot people in the legs, not the chest.
He, I mean, that's
God damn it.
okay, but also
Anyway, what?
thumbs up to Biden on that one.
No.
Good call.
God damn it,
No,
no.
the one he said was
I support that kind of nonviolence in our president.
he had an executive order where he's trying to make it so that companies can't bar somebody from working due to non-disclosure agreements or something like. So like if I want to go
non-competitive.
Oh,
not
yeah, I heard
competitive,
about
thank you.
that,
Like
yeah,
if
yeah.
I want to go to my competitors, like my current company could say no if you sign this.
Yep.
And I'm like, whoa, that sucks. So I guess I just
Even all
stay
those,
here.
even if all of those skills that you learned in that job, like, are totally compatible with your job, your old job's competitor. Like,
Yeah.
it's.
What you don't understand
I
is
get the
we-
trade secret things, but
Yeah.
like if you're like working for a grocery store, like Target, say, right? Well, grocery, clothing, whatever store, and they have a non-disclosure agreement that you can't go work at,
Non-competitive.
whatever. You can't go work at Cub,
Yep.
and I'm like, why not? Why not?
What?
What
'Cause
trade
Cub is-
secrets are there?
Because Cub
Yeah.
is going to pay you worse for worse hours, and Target's just looking out for you. That's why everybody
Yeah.
works 3-hour and 45-minute shifts and no breaks.
Yeah, apparently, I think the company's got the memo that if people are mercenaries, then they're going to just jump ship because fuck everybody, right? Like, not everyone is like this, but to the
But
people that are...
Isn't that part of capitalism?
Yeah, and so
Kinda, yeah.
Biden says, like, oh, we're going to stop this practice as best we can because this is bad for workers. And I'm thinking, like, okay, thanks, man.
But it's also bad for companies.
I'm not like, oh, thank you, Lord Emperor,
Good companies should
Biden.
have to work for their labor more.
I would agree.
The thing is, like, so
agree.
President Biden did something nice, but I'm not like, oh, this is fantastic, I'm joining the cult. Like, I'm just like, oh, that's just common
Good.
sense.
Duh.
Wait,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did you guys not see? Oh, I didn't tell you. I got a Biden tattoo.
Okay, nobody's getting Biden. Like,
No one is.
to answer your question about how people in New Mexico are going to want to pay for a subway system in New York, I have no idea, but someone's cracked the code. They're not giving it to me, but clearly one party is so cult-like that you can just do that.
My fellow Americans, I have a plea to you. Now, we know there's a crisis at our southern border. And we know that our government is clearly full of pedophiles that frequent a certain pizza restaurant. Wink, wink. Anyway,
Sounds
my fellow
right.
Americans, my plea to you today is for you to give us money so we can build high-speed rail across this nation. So, when those Marxist, socialist, communist pedophiles
Micah's
trying
kind
to take
of
this country...
full-blown, like, QAnon preacher here. Like,
It's
just,
working.
Then we can go. We can go from Albuquerque. We can go from Des Moines. We can go from Dubuque. We can go from anywhere. And we can go and rile against these anti-American Antifa.
Yeah, that's how you would have to do it. I feel like if you're gonna
No, I will
Guys,
never
I
vote.
just got
Never.
$3 million from a super PAC. I don't even know how they hurt.
Well, I don't know what's stopping people from just running Republican and then just not giving a shit about what they vote for, right? Like
That's the current Republican platform.
Yeah, pretty much.
But like if you're a progressive, right, and you're like, I want to have tunnels for all these roads because fuck roads, and I want to have a subway system here too, and no one's gonna go for that. But if you're a Republican, you're like, well, God doesn't like roads, so we gotta make
pay
tunnels.
your lip service. and then
Antifa would
go
not
in
want subways.
Yeah,
Let me tell you, Antifa hates subways.
it's known that Antifa is not gonna block the road for one of their protests because it's in a tunnel.
If we have more subways, we will not have street protests.
Right.
There will be no streets on which to protest.
And then, there you go. And so I feel like that's the way to get a better, public transport system here.
All right, what's the topic?
Without
Thanks for that
tunnels,
input,
without
Phil.
tunnels, or with tunnels.
Sure. I like the idea, but it's going to be fucking crazy expensive. Like, it's going to be so expensive. It just can't be done. Like, we
Can
just
be
have
if,
too many
if money
roads.
wasn't a thing.
But money isn't a thing. That's the whole point. Money's a fiction.
This is true.
Except for
it could
it's-
work. It could work.
Yeah.
No,
Uh-huh.
no, it won't work because no one's gonna.
Okay, it's
go,
a fiction until it hurts.
Hey, how about this? How about this? We'll pay for it with Dogecoin.
It is a fiction until it hurts.
It's a fiction until, I've been complaining to this.
Just like our emotions.
Yes, also true. Free will.
You guys still have those?
Doesn't exist.
Alcohol helps.
Cries.
Like-
Yes, I could use some more.
6 or 8 weeks ago, I was complaining to one of our board game fellows that when board games existed,
They continue to exist, Phil. Just the playing of them doesn't.
Yeah.
They exist as an entity.
They exist as a thing that no one cares
It's
about.
curio of, well, back in my day, we would sit around and roll dice, and people would get wood and sheep and bricks.
I got wood for your sheep. Like, okay, sorry.
Board games in waiting.
I was explaining to I was explaining it like, hey, look, inflation's coming, and they're like, oh, inflation's actually good. Inflation's a good thing. Everyone needs to have more inflation, and this is a good thing because the people above are
say that now.
Are
really
really
able to buy anything because of inflation.
It's like they're like, oh, the Federal Reserve know what they're doing. It's really complicated, and I don't expect you to understand it because you're fairly ignorant. And I'm like, listen, yes, I am, and I don't feel any better for what you just said because I don't believe it. In my jellies, I think we're gonna get fucked. And I just have this feeling that nobody is paying attention until it's gonna hurt. And now I feel like, in the summer of 2021, that it kind of sucks. Like, a pallet of wood is just fucking ridiculous in cost.
It's gone down 50%.
Yeah,
It's only gonna cost you one arm or leg.
Instead of both.
Exactly. I don't know if it's actually gonna... When something... Again, this is prediction time. Gets lowered in cost. Like, who is actually saving the money? Are they going to actually lower the price at the hardware stores, or are they going to keep it because they realize people are going to pay for it at that level? Like,
no, because there's been a tangible decrease in new business buildings because of the cost.
Yeah, they're like, we can't afford to build, so we aren't going to build.
Hardware stores have hurt because of it.
I feel like once prices actually rise to a point, it's very difficult for it to go back to its original cost.
Until the inevitable collapse of our entire country, because we don't have a stable economy where we have an adequate representation for what goods should be, because we've had this weird one-off situation in which it rose to X% above what its average should be.
Because the supply is down.
So, if our housing construction stays fucked in terms of only the rich can build, then what are the poor people going to do? Especially if the housing market, we're going to end up having like a weird renter versus owner class, and we're going to have people that are just going to be renting for their entire lives.
Yeah, I mean
that's already...
This is like...
But like on a grand scale.
No, this is...
Because banks are buying up more properties because they have the capital to purchase them.
Yeah, this is just basically what California was in the 90s, right? And being in the Midwest, fashion and economics takes like 10 to 20 years before it hits us.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you talked about how expensive shit was in California, right, back in the 90s, you were saying, oh my god, this house is $500,000 just to be in here. And we thought, oh, that price is so high, right?
That's so low.
But now $500,000 is still ridiculously fucking high because wages didn't increase since the 1970s.
But
now
for
that, California,
now that
$500,000
home is a 2-bedroom rambler with a half-functional toilet.
And people are like, oh, that's just California. It's like, I always thought that too. But then now I'm looking at it and like, oh yeah, the renters feudalism society, like where you just have a generation of renters. That's what California was in the 90s, and they accepted their fate. Like, now that's going to be us in the fucking Midwest where there's nothing to do.
But we don't have the same type of economy that California has. California's like gig and service economy is so much more that you can really support that type of renter generation. Because they're always in a kind of flux employment anyway.
That's true.
And that keeps all of that down for businesses. But you don't have that same type of service economy in places other than California. You do have that's an aspect of the economy, but it's not a primary subset.
I feel, though, that if banks now are buying homes and then just renting them to people, like, they can just have it to a point where a person has to pay 50 to 70% of their wages to rent. Like, they'll max it out as much as they can before the person can't afford anything more. Mm-hmm. And they're going to just set that price point. And that doesn't matter if it's gig too much. They're just going to, like, a gig economy too much. They're just going to min-max paying to money. And I feel like I thought the Midwest was kind of immune from this because who the fuck wants to go here? But no, it's reaching to us, obviously, and the people who can afford homes are now paying easily, $400,000 to $600,000 for a home from the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Double what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and
if not more.
What it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So in this mind of like, oh, that's just how inflation works. Inflation's not such a bad thing, Phil.
But this isn't inflation.
Economy.
This is a direct result of the Trump administration loosening up a lot of regulations on home purchasing and how banks can fill out their loans.
Yeah.
Because they removed Dodd-Frank again, which is what led to the '08 collapse.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
But now they're not, the banks learned, so they're not doing inflation thing anymore. They're just keeping the property themselves.
Yeah.
Why even sell it when we just rent it at a profit?
Yeah. This. Like,
We hold on to the
now
property.
renting is actually more expensive.
Oh, it's been like that for a
We
while.
hold on to the
having a
property.
mortgage.
We have the repairs on the renter.
Yeah.
Because we write the contracts.
I have
We don't pay for upkeep, we just pay for the property. That's it.
I have an older generation person that's like, oh well, when you rent, you don't have to pay for property tax, and I'm like, who do you think pays the property? Like, your rent money goes to the property. Like, I don't understand how you don't understand this. Like,
Well, they've never rented their entire lives.
oh,
That's why.
That's why.
Because they had an economy where they could purchase something. Anyway, since we've clearly established that all highways need to be covered up by tunnels,
Disagrees.
regardless of the cost, because our economy is fucked anyway.
Yeah, that's
Money's
true.
a fiction
Until it hurts.
until it hurts.
And when we inevitably have Trump Jr.'s Jr. running for president in, I don't know, 2032 when he's like
Ivanka.
9.
Ivanka.
She doesn't want that kind of publicity anymore. She might skate away without federal imprisonment.
Prediction.
And if that
2024.
happens,
Prediction.
or any other stories we told you on the podcast today, be sure to let us know at iiopodcast.gmail. Do we have an email?
Yeah.
We do, but
Stay tuned until next time when I find out what the email is. Bye, Mom.
yeah, all right, whatever. Bye, Mom.
Um.